Alright, hello world and all who inhabit it. My name is Jetty Machete, the Mountain Wizard, and I am here again today, and I would like to talk about something that I think is probably, a very, very, very important concept. I think it's an incredibly important concept. And the concept today that I would like to talk about is taking living seriously. Now, what does that mean? Okay, because there is a big difference between taking living seriously and taking life seriously, right? Like, there is a huge difference between these two things. The words seem very similar, but I've got some examples I'd like to use to illustrate this point, right? Like, this is something that I learned from a few different mentors in my life, and through a few different experiences in my life. I had one of my dear brothers who passed away a few years ago. He was a man that we all called Mountain Michael. And Mountain Michael was a very special man. He was my mentor, he was my brother, and he, well, we call him Mountain Michael because he lived on a mountain for like 12 years, something like that. And this guy was like, he and the Great Spirit were like hand in hand, And he was a man that took living very seriously. He spent as much of his time as possible helping people, smiling, laughing. I mean, I think that I'd only ever seen him mad and angry maybe once or twice, and it was for pretty righteous reasons. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I remember that they were pretty good reasons. And I mean, he was very childlike, but only in the way he carried himself. I mean, the man himself, he was a genius. He was a genius level intellect. He loved working on puzzles, and so for years he was a mechanic. He was a refrigeration technician. He knew how to weld, he knew how to build, he knew all kinds of different stuff. He was a real Renaissance man. And the best thing that he knew about was how to take living seriously, Because when you take living seriously, you take this moment, right now, seriously. And not in the sense that, like, you have to go around with this great sense of determination or angst or something like that, this great focus. No, it's like, it's more about being aware that you're alive. It's like taking the time to savor the breath, to stop and smell the flowers, and, to enjoy the sunshine on a sunny day, and to enjoy the rain and to enjoy the snow. When you take living seriously, when you take being alive seriously, and you realize that, there are very few things in this world that are worth sacrificing your peace over. You have to really learn how to accept the things you cannot change, and how to actively labor and work to affect and change the things that you can change. And that's something that I know a lot of people struggle with. Like, I see people, all the time. They've got these problems that are tomorrow's problems, and you can't solve tomorrow's problems today. And likewise, the problems that you had yesterday, you can't solve those today either. And so those are things that really have to be let go, but that's where people live a lot. People live a lot in tomorrow's problems and in yesterday's tragedies, and that just does nothing but rob us of our ability to be alive now, and that's like, and then it's the same thing, like I can understand when people get upset because things happen in the world, especially like politically or with celebrities or, like all these different things that happen in life that really you don't have any control over, and that you don't have an ability to show, really a vested interest, because once again, like the truth of it is that anything that happens to somebody else is not happening to you. And you can rally on that person's behalf, but ultimately the person who needs to affect change the most is that person that it's happening to. There's really only so much a person outside can do for another person, that's why the saying, give a man a fish and you fed him for a day. If you teach a man to fish and you fed him for a lifetime, that's the same thing. It's like, if we're going to do anything for other people, we got to teach them how to do it themselves. And realistically, that's just good leadership. Because the best leaders understand that every human being has their own suite of skills and abilities, and the best thing that you can do is equip them to make the right decisions for themselves. And that's why I'm making these videos, is so that I can help equip some people with better skills, because there are a lot of people that don't understand how to take living seriously, and there are so many things that we just take for granted in being alive. Oh man. Oh, yep. Oh. Breathing, that's a big one. Enjoying whatever you're going through is a big one. Like, I know so many people that it's like you can't be bothered with the droll things in life. And to me, you just have to find the enjoyment that's inside of them. Like something like doing the dishes. I don't really mind doing the dishes. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't want to spend time doing this. But for the most part, I'm like, well, the water's warm. The soap smells nice. I like to eat off of clean dishes. I don't like having food poisoning. I don't really know anybody that does. And it's nice to, like if you're married, it's nice to keep the house clean, because that does so much to help the mental health of your significant other and the people around you and yourself. But that's something that we really take for granted and that people don't want to do. That's a labor that lots of people really don't want to do. They don't find any enjoyment in it, because it's work. It's work. I have to do work to take care of myself. And it's like, the truth of it is that no matter what you do, life requires some level of labor. It requires some level of input from you as a participant. It's not, life doesn't just happen. Things don't just happen. I mean, well, sure, things are always happening. But I mean, if we were living in a primitive human setting, every day you would have to look for food. Every day you would have to do something to work on your living space. Every day you would have to do something with yourself. These things wouldn't just be handed to us at the grocery store. And these things, our houses wouldn't be built by other people. Like, our entertainment wouldn't come to us piped through a box. Or, you would have to make your own guitar or something. We would have to figure all that out. Because life requires work. Life requires labor. And I mean, it's kind of nonsense that we live in this world where so much labor is required to live, because ultimately to survive doesn't require near that much labor. And we do live in a time where the technology is good enough to where people could live without working jobs. I'm not going to say jobs are required for living, because that's a lie. I mean, and that's something else, that when you come to take living seriously and you realize how low the bar is for survival, because it is quite low. I mean, ask anybody that's hitchhiked or train hopped or been homeless. The thing that these people in these groups suffer with the most is addiction, because ultimately survival is easy. I mean, that's the truth. That's the truth of it. Finding food and finding shelter and having friends, it's all easy. That's easy. That's something that our species conquered so long ago, and so well, that now we live in a world where we have vast amounts of luxuries. Things that aren't even necessary for survival. Even medieval peasants had luxuries. I mean, of course, they weren't on the level like what we have now. I mean, and that's one reason why, like, child mortality was so out of control. Because having running water in your house, and hot water especially, is huge for human survival. But it's something that we learned how to get along without. And so now that we've built this world, it's much more comprehensive. Survival's never been so easy for our species. And even that's kind of part of the problem, because once upon a time, when things were dangerous, people were more daring. And in their daring, they were much less compliant. It was a lot harder to get people to go along with the fold. I mean, and that's why if you go back and look at, medieval history, the national borders that we know of today were they were just nebulous. Borders shifted and changed all the time. Ideologies changed all the time. Because humanity was much harder to control. There weren't like these rigid lines. There was no public education to tell people, oh, well, this is Germany. It's always been Germany. This is Kentucky. It's always been Kentucky. No, like, even before the Renaissance, in like the 1500s and the 15th century, before the Western man came into the Americas, the Native Americans went through it too. Their tribes changed land. I mean, the world was constantly changing. It's only in this modern world that things have become like kind of set in stone. And even then, they're really not. Countries are still rising and falling. But that's just the nature of the human animal. And what we do after survival is taken care of. But these are people, the people that worry about building nations, these are people that take life way too seriously. They're not taking living seriously. They take life seriously. Bankers and, investment tycoons and billionaires and these people, they're taking life really seriously. And to be honest, they're ruining living for lots of other people. But at the same time, a person that takes living seriously, this person can't have that time ruined. I'm as free in jail as I am in the outside world. I understand that inside of myself, whatever experience I go through, I still have freedom within myself, within my mind, and within my heart. There are realms that no man may conquer, and even if they put me to death, then I'm just sent to these realms. Then I'm withdrawn from this reality and back into the bigger picture of things. Because the universe that's inside of all of us, each and every one of us, inside of our imaginations and inside of our minds and our emotions, is infinite. And it's more vast than this body is. This body is a very, very, very potent and small concentration of what we really are as beings. And so we've got to learn how to take living seriously. That's of the utmost importance if our species is to evolve. If we as individuals are to evolve, then we have to learn how to take living seriously, how to take being alive seriously. We've got to learn how to love more and forgive more and comprehend more. We've got to learn how to look beyond all of these things that are set in our path to distract us. That's what we really need to do. And the only way that we're going to be able to do that is by learning what it means to take living seriously. One of my favorite things is just breathing. Breathing, exercising. Bodies are meant to be used.Use it. Go outside. Go climb a tree or something. Go pet a cat. I don't know. There are so many things in this life that you can do. And if it's something you enjoy doing, then you should do it. But there's a difference between doing things because you enjoy them and they're escapes, and things that you can enjoy doing that you're dumping yourself fully forward into it. But I don't know. This is kind of a ramble. They usually are. But if you've made it this far in the video, I'd like to say thank you from my heart. Thank you from the deepest parts of my being. And I hope that you will leave a like, subscribe, leave a comment. Doing all of these things will help my channel grow. And until we meet again, blessings onto you and your house. May peace find you and guide you anywhere you go.